Hi everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel, and I am here for an album review, but this is also going to come with a rant. So yeah, I figured that I would go ahead and review another Iron Maiden album. So yeah, if you want to see more Iron Maiden reviews on this channel, you can of course let me know about that down in the comments. So yeah, since this is a rant, you guys know that I really don't have the highest opinion on this record. So for this review, I'm going to be reviewing Iron Maiden, The Final Frontier. This is the album. So, yeah. This is an album that I would say is the weakest of Iron Maiden's modern stuff, and I know a lot of people agree with that as well. There's actually a lot of people that say that this is the weakest, I guess, modern Maiden album, which is definitely something I agree with. To be honest with you guys, this is probably my second least favorite Iron Maiden album, just behind Virtual 11. Yeah, this album really isn't anything that great or that special. That's not to say that there's no good songs on it. There's a few good songs on it, but I don't know what it is. I feel like at this point of their career, this is where Iron Maiden were really starting to run out of ideas. Now, I know some people could say the same about the album that came before The Final Frontier, A Matter of Life and Death. Let me tell you something. A Matter of Life and Death, it's a lot better than The Final Frontier, I think. I think, this album just doesn't really feel that inspired. It seems like they just put, like, random things together just to get the album done. Like, it kind of felt like it was like made out of a necessity or something, like because a new Iron Maiden album was due at the time, so Bruce and the guys got together and did this album. A lot of these tracks on The Final Frontier just really don't have much going for them. There's not much. This album just doesn't have replayability. Like, when I'm sitting somewhere and I'm thinking, I want to listen to Iron Maiden, this album is not the album that comes to mind. I'm not thinking, wow, Final Frontier, yeah, that's the album I want to go back to. No. It's going to be either usually something from one of their 1980s albums, and, even their 90s stuff as well. And, I've seen some people's rank videos when it comes to the Iron Maiden discography. I've seen people that have this album above No Prayer for the Dying. Now, I get that No Prayer for the Dying is an iffy album for some people. I can understand that. I personally think it's an underrated album. I don't think it's as bad as a lot of people say it is, but there's no way that that album is worse than Final Frontier. I just don't see it at all. It just has more interesting tracks to me, even though maybe it's not the best with replayability. It's better than this. I mean, heck, I've seen some rank videos where people have the Final Frontier above the self-titled debut album. The debut album. Like, are you serious? Are you serious? How? How is this better than the self-titled debut? There's just absolutely no possible way that the Final Frontier is better than the debut album. I mean, like, how? I can't see it at all. Maybe other than a few songs, but, like, don't judge the entire album based on a few songs. I mean, now it could just have to do with, maybe some people, like, preferring the, I guess, more metal or progressive side of Iron Maiden or something like that. And that's kind of what this album has going for it. It's like trying to be like progressive metal in a sense, and it's a style for Iron Maiden that has just never really done much for me. A lot of these songs just feel so bland and boring, especially in the middle parts of the album. Like the middle sections of this album are just pretty generic. It just feels like, they put these songs on the album just for the sake of making the album length. Like I said, this album just feels like it was made out of a necessity or something. because, you know, back when this album came out, Maiden was just due for a new album. So, yeah. But of course, let's go ahead and talk about some of these songs. We got songs like Satellite 15, The Final Frontier. This is actually not a bad track. I know there's a lot of people that say that this is one of their favorites off this album. I think it's only okay. It's actually not a bad song. And it's a pretty decent album opener. Now, the song Coming Home is probably my favorite song off this entire record. I mean, it's actually a really good Iron Maiden song. I mean, I really like the guitar work. It's a song that I feel like has more replayability than most of the songs on this album. I really like what that song has going for it overall, though. And, you know, I try to give songs like, Starblind a chance. It just never did anything for me, you know. I remember, you know, giving this album another chance, and it still didn't really do much for me. Like, the problem is, especially with the middle sections of this album, especially some of the songs like Starblind, like I said, these songs just don't have musical progression to them. Like, they just don't go anywhere. Like I said, they just feel like they're there just for the sake of being there. But of course, I do want to talk about the closing track, When the Wild Wind Blows. Now, I know this is a fan favorite off this record, and you know what? I can actually see why. I actually do like this song a little bit. It's not my favorite album closer from Iron Maiden, but I can understand why it's a fan favorite off this album. It's actually a good song. This actually feels like a song that has some musical progression to it. Like, you know, it's got a lot of variety to it. I think it's a very complex song, but not only that, it's got a really unique structure to it. And yeah, I feel like as if like most of this album didn't go anywhere because they wanted to save the, I guess, progression structures for the very end of the album. I don't know if that's really what they were going for here, but yeah. But it just doesn't really work in my opinion. This is just not an album that has the replayability like a lot of their other albums do. So overall, I would have to give The Final Frontier by Iron Maiden a score. I'd give it, you know what, I'll give it like a 5.8 out of 10. Yeah, I know that's a fairly low score, lower than what most people would rate this album, but to me, this album is really only good for a couple songs. I mean, like I said, a lot of these songs just don't have much going for them, you know? And if you're new to Iron Maiden and want to start off with one of their albums, please, I'm telling you now, do not start with The Final Frontier. Of course, I would start with one of their 1980s stuff. Albums like Peace of Mind, Power Slave, Somewhere in Time, you know. Albums like those would be great starting points for you. But The Final Frontier, it's not a good gateway album. It's really not, because you might be a little hesitant about checking out the rest of their work, if that were the case. Thankfully, like I said earlier in the video, there are some people that do say that this is definitely the weakest in terms of Iron Maiden's modern time, which is definitely true. But I don't understand the people that say that this album is still better than No Prayer for the Dying, and even the debut album, for crying out loud. Like, just no. So, yeah, The Final Frontier, to me, is just a little bit above average. It's kind of just an average album. It's good for a couple of songs. I would really just recommend the songs Coming Home and When the Wild Wind Blows. Those are actually good songs, but a lot of this album just doesn't really feel that inspired, and for the most part, it doesn't really go anywhere. So that's my thoughts on The Final Frontier by Iron Maiden. Let me know what you guys think of this record. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day. Take care.